Chapter 576. Feng Xiao was stunned when he heard this. He didn't expect the old man to have such a romantic history. Also, that woman called Su Shi had been in love with the old man for so many years and had been waiting for him. Even his mother didn't know about this. Thinking of this, he composed himself and said, "Don't worry. Father knows what to do. It's rare for someone to treat the old man so sincerely. As his descendants, we naturally have to help him. In the future, there will be someone by his side to take care of him. That way, we can be more at ease." Yes. That's what I was thinking. Feng Zhou nodded with a smile. Grandfather is a little embarrassed. Father, let the subordinates prepare and arrange this matter. Pick a good date and let me know. I have to calculate the time because I still want to help grandfather concoct the advancement medicine so that he can advance to a martial honor in the shortest time possible. Alright, I understand. You've rushed back, so go rest first. Leave the rest to father. He smiled and let her go back to rest. She nodded, then I'll go back first. Go. He waved his hand and watched her leave. After a pause, he called someone in and asked them to choose a suitable date for the wedding. He also asked them to prepare the betrothal gifts. The next day, Feng Xiao showed the chosen date to Feng Zhou and the old man. He said, "This year, there's only one auspicious date suitable for marriage. It's December 13th. It's close to the first day of the new year. There's less than 3 months left. What do you think of this date? Less than 3 months. Isn't it a little too rushed?" The old man asked. He was worried that with such a tight schedule, many things would not be arranged properly. "If we don't get married this year, then we'll have to wait until next year." Feng Xiao smiled and looked at the old man. "Actually, father, you don't have to worry. Let them arrange these things. There's enough manpower and it'll be done quickly." Feng Zhou nodded. "Yes, I think it's feasible. Although it's less than 3 months, we should be able to arrange everything properly." But old Master Feng hesitated. He did not dare to think about breaking through to martial honor in less than 3 months. Feng Zhou saw that his brows were slightly furrowed and his face was full of worry and hesitation. He knew what he was worried about. He smiled and said, "Grandfather, it's good that you've tried your best. Anyway, Aunt Su Shi doesn't mind that you're an old man. If you can become a revered martial artist in 3 months, then it's a good thing. If you can't, then it's okay." Hearing this, Master Feng's eyebrows relaxed, and a smile appeared on his face. "Alright then. We'll do as you say. What about the betrothal gifts?" "Father will have someone list the betrothal gifts. Also, I'll make some medicine or pills to add to it." She took out 2 bottles of medicine and handed them to him. "Grandfather, you're only 1 step away from becoming a martial emperor. Take these 2 bottles of medicine and go into seclusion to cultivate. When you break through, I'll make more medicine for you." "Okay." Chapter 577. "Yes, grandfather, don't worry. I'll send someone to inform them." "Alright, I'll take my leave first." He then walked out and prepared to cultivate in seclusion. After watching him leave, Feng Zhou asked, "Father, regarding grandfather's wedding, do you plan to send invitations to the surrounding countries and the aristocratic families in the city?" Of course, grandfather is getting married and is the retired emperor of the Phoenix dynasty. Naturally, we have to send invitations to the surrounding countries. However, I'm worried that some people from the surrounding countries will take the opportunity to cause trouble. He pondered for a while and said, "Think about it, our Phoenix dynasty has just been established. Although the Feng family guard is not weaker than them, our foundation is not stable. If they want to cause trouble, I'm afraid that they will ruin grandfather's wedding. If anything happens, I'm afraid that we won't be able to get out of this. Moreover, he paused and hesitated, we can't always rely on Mohan to support us. After all, we are a country and are in charge of a country. If we rely on outsiders for everything, we will be looked down upon. Moreover, Mohan can't protect us forever. Therefore, this matter of invitations can be said to be difficult on both sides. Hearing that, her eyes flickered and the corners of her lips curled up. It's fine, please. It's one thing if they peacefully attend grandfather's wedding, but if they really cause trouble during the wedding, then we can teach them a lesson and let them know that we are not to be trifled with. Otherwise, even if this matter is over, there will be trouble in the future. Since that's the case, why don't we settle it once and for all? Xiao Zhou, you have to think clearly. If you really decide, then the one who will make things difficult for you will not be their emperor, but those princes and princesses. I can't deal with it personally, so it can only be done by you. Have you really thought it through? Do you have the confidence? Father, don't worry. She smiled and said, I have to go back too. The betrothal gifts and wedding invitations will have to be arranged by father. Grandfather is in seclusion, so I have to make the best use of my time to concoct medicine. I probably won't go out for a while. If you're busy concocting medicine, then what about Mohan? Is he in the palace or in the Feng Manor? He's in the Feng Manor. He said that there isn't much going on right now, so he can stay here for a while longer. I figure that he will return once grandfather's wedding is over. She said this while waving her hand at him, I'll be leaving first. There's something I need to talk to Lang Hua about. Feng Xiao shook his head helplessly as he watched her leave the main hall. He had wanted to ask her about her relationship with Mohan. The girl ran away like a wisp of smoke. Sigh. Forget it, the children had grown up and had their own thoughts and ideas. As a father, it was better for him to not interfere and let them be. After exiting the great hall, Feng Zhou didn't go to the palace. Instead, after giving some instructions to the Feng guards, he instructed Lang Hua to stay in the palace and return to the Feng Manor with Lang Shuang. He planned to go to the Feng Manor to refine medicine. Furthermore, Xianyuan Mose was still waiting in the manor. However, before she could leave the palace, she saw a black figure appear in front of her. Looking over, it was Xianyuan Mose, and behind him were Hui Lang and Ying Yi. However, Hui Lang and Ying Yi's expressions were serious. Seeing this, her eyes moved slightly, and she looked at him standing in front of her and asked, "What's wrong?" Chapter 578. However, as soon as the words came out, he grabbed her waist, and with a few leaps, he disappeared in front of the two people behind him. Hui Lang and Ying Yi looked at each other, but did not follow. Feng Zhou was held in his arms, her body tightly pressed against his chest, and smelling his unique scent, her heart gradually calmed down. She did not know when, but as long as he was by her side, she would feel at ease. Perhaps even if she did not want to admit it, in her heart, there was something quietly changing. With a spin, the black robe and the white robe intertwined with each other in the wind, he steadily stopped at the top of the highest palace in the imperial palace. At this time, it was still early in the morning, the sun was not dazzling, and the breeze was very comfortable. Seeing him standing there quietly with his arms around her, but did not speak, just stared at her with a pair of deep black eyes, as if he wanted to remember her appearance in his mind, her heart slightly moved, and an idea came to her mind. Withdrawing from his arms, she casually sat down and asked, "Are you leaving?" "Well, I just received the news, so I have to go back immediately." He looked at her, as if he wanted to say something, but after a slight pause, he just said, "This time, if you want to come back, it will not be so easy." "Are you going back to the Empire?" She remembered that last time Hui Lang had said that they were only going back to the first-class country to deal with some things. If they went back to the Empire, the long journey was one thing, but more importantly, it would be difficult to come back. If they did not want to establish a force here, it was estimated that they would not have come here from the Empire. He responded, and looked at her with his black eyes and said, "This time, I will not be able to come down for a few years, you have to take care of yourself. I originally wanted to attend your grandfather's wedding and send you to the 6-star academy, but now I can't. And I will." She nodded, and then said, "It doesn't matter, I will go to the 6-star academy myself, I will talk to my grandfather." His black eyes moved slightly, and looking at her calm face, he asked, "Don't you have anything you want to say to me?" She tilted her head slightly to look at him and smiled. "Take care." Hearing this, he felt powerless and asked, "How did I treat you? Could it be that you didn't feel anything these days?" As he spoke, he didn't wait for her to speak and continued, "This time, I won't be able to come down again after leaving. Don't avoid the question of feelings anymore. Give me an answer." Hearing his domineering words, she looked up at him and asked, "If I say no, will you let it go?" She seemed to have asked this question before. However, after Xianyuan Mose heard this, he stared deeply at her and said domineeringly, "No. You are the woman that this monarch fancies, so you can only be this monarch's woman." Hearing this, she couldn't help but laugh. A smile blossomed on her peerlessly beautiful face. It was a happy smile, a smile that came from the bottom of her heart. It was so beautiful, so dazzling. Chapter 579. Looking at the smiling face in front of him, a sentence surged from the bottom of his heart and he couldn't help but blurt it out. "Fengzhou, my heart loves you." Fengzhou's heart trembled as his words echoed in her ears. "Fengzhou, my heart loves you." She looked at him and saw him quietly staring at her. The deep affection and gentleness in his eyes couldn't help but shake her heart. She restrained her smile and her eyes fell on his handsome and resolute face. For the first time, she directly responded to his feelings. "Your feelings, your intentions, I can feel them all. However, there is a knot in my heart that hasn't been untied. In this kind of situation, I'm not willing to accept your feelings. Moreover, your status is not ordinary. I don't know how long your feelings will last. Will your love for me be able to withstand the test of time and power? Once a woman invests in her feelings, she will wholeheartedly and will not be able to take it back. Once a man gains his feelings, his passion will gradually decrease. Since you want me to give you an answer before you leave, then my answer is, do you dare to make a 10-year promise with me?" She looked at him. This time, she didn't avoid the question, didn't avoid answering, and didn't pretend to be confused. Instead, she spoke clearly and clearly. 10 years from now, if you still don't give up, if you still insist on the decision you made today, if you still dare to say to me, "Fengzhou, my heart loves you," then I will marry you." Hearing this, his heart trembled. He could feel her fear towards feelings. She was afraid of being hurt. She was afraid that after she invested in her feelings and fell in love with him, he wouldn't be able to withstand the test of time and power. She was afraid that after a long time, his love for her would be worn away by time and power. Seeing her lack of confidence, seeing her so proud, seeing her so insecure, his heart was filled with pity and heartache. He wanted to tell her, "No, in this life, I will only love you. Neither time nor power will be able to erase my love for you." However, he didn't say it. Rather than saying it, it was better to use time and action to prove it. He would let her know that his love for her would never change. This ruler agrees to the 10-year promise. He looked at her and said with a solemn and serious expression, "Don't come back for the next 10 years. Just wait for me in the Empire. 10 years later, I will look for you for an answer." She stood up. Her white robe and black hair fluttered in the wind. She raised her eyes to look at him. Her usual self-confidence and devilish charm had been restored. Between her brows, there was recklessness and brashness. What I advocate is a lifelong relationship. In this promise of 10 years, you have to keep your chastity. If I find out that you have other women by your side, then there's no need to wait for 10 years. You'll be kicked out immediately. I won't give you another chance. Hearing these domineering and arrogant words, Xianyuan Mo's lips curled up slightly, a smile appearing in his deep black eyes. Just you alone is enough to torment this monarch. How would this monarch dare to provoke others? Looking at his back facing the morning sun, he raised his eyebrows slightly. His deep black eyes were mysterious and full of affection as he stared at her. His sexy thin lips curved slightly, revealing a charming smile that could topple all living things. Chapter 580. Xianyuan Mo's entire body shook. He watched as she stood on her tiptoes and reached out to grab his neck, pulling him down and kissing him on the lips. That soft touch made him instantly come back to his senses. He held her waist with one hand and pressed the back of her head with the other. He changed from passivity to initiative and deepened the kiss. Feeling the man's inexperienced kissing technique, she couldn't help laughing in her heart. She guided him, so that her lips wouldn't be bitten until they bled. When Xianyuan Mo felt her skillful kissing technique, his eyes deepened. Under her guidance, his lips and tongue played with hers. It wasn't until he felt the woman in his arms go limp in his arms that he finally let her go. Looking at her flushed face and slightly disordered breathing, his low and hoarse voice had an indescribable meaning as he asked in a strange tone, "Who taught you this?" "What?" Fengjiu was confused by the kiss and didn't react. It wasn't until she saw his deep eyes staring at her lips and saw the expression on his face that she couldn't help but chuckle. "Even if you haven't practiced it, it's in the book. You don't even know this." This man was jealous. Hearing this, his eyes flashed with understanding. So the book also taught this. It seems like when he went back, he would have to ask Hui Lang to find a few books for him to study. "That's right, you shouldn't have much medicine left to suppress the cold poison, right? I haven't refined it yet. If you leave like this, then wouldn't the cold poison?" He hugged her and looked at her worried expression. He smiled and said, "No need. This 1,000-year-old cold poison can't always be suppressed. Otherwise, the consequences will be even more serious. Then what if the cold poison acts up? His situation should be very dangerous, especially since those people had targeted the 15th night. It could be seen that they knew he was the weakest on the 15th night and it was the easiest to take his life. You don't have to worry about this. This monarch has his own plans." As he spoke, he took out a necklace and put it on her. This necklace is a defensive artifact. No matter what, you can't take it off. She felt a chill in front of her chest. She lowered her head slightly and saw that it was a purple droplet-shaped pendant that was emitting a mysterious light. In this dazzling droplet pendant, there were 7 light yellow little stars. She didn't know what material it was made of, but when it reflected the sunlight, it was even beautiful and dazzling. "Thank you." She thanked him softly but realized that she had nothing to give him. Then, her eyes flashed as if she had thought of something. She said to him, "Wait a moment." There was a smile in his eyes as he looked at her quietly. He watched as she took out a red string from her space. She then took out a strand of her hair and braided it into the red string. Finally, she asked him to reach out and tie it around his wrist. "Rope of peace, my gift in return." Looking at the woven red string on his wrist, the corners of his mouth slightly curved. "And this gift is very good. I will always wear it." She deeply looked at him, as if she wanted to remember his face in her mind. She hid the reluctance in her heart and softly said, "I'll send you out of the city." "No need." A low and deep voice came from his mouth. His deep black eyes looked into her eyes as he slowly said, "We'll have to part in the end. You can just send me off here." As he spoke, he lowered his head and gently kissed her forehead. Chapter 581. Fengjiu looked at her deeply after he finished speaking. Then, he resolutely turned around and waved his sleeves. He rose into the air and flew towards the palace gate. She watched as his black robe fluttered in the wind. She watched as his figure gradually disappeared into the distance. She watched as he left without looking back. 10 years. 10 years later, if you are still determined to love me, I will marry you. She whispered softly. She kept watching until his figure completely disappeared from her sight. Then, she retracted her gaze and suppressed the reluctance in her heart. 10 years is enough for me to grow. 10 years later, I will definitely be qualified to stand by your side. Her eyes shone with confidence. She glanced at the direction he left and then turned to leave. In the following days, she did not cultivate. Instead, she was refining medicine. Bottles of medicine were formed in her hands. In addition to the medicine for her grandfather, she also had to prepare some for the Lin family as betrothal gifts. A big family like the Lin family naturally wouldn't lack things like gold, silver, and treasures. But even in a place like theirs, high-grade medicines were very rare. Although they didn't care what kind of betrothal gift her grandfather took out, she felt that this was the face of the Feng family and also the importance they attached to Aunt Sushi. Naturally, they couldn't be too casual. A family like the Lin family would also have a great need for this kind of medicine. She was certain that they would be very surprised when these 100 bottles of medicine were given as betrothal gifts. In the medicine refining courtyard, various spiritual medicines were placed on the table. Ling Shuang was helping to classify them. One master and servant refined the medicine while the other classified the herbs. Due to her orders, if there was nothing important, no one would come to disturb her. Even Luo Yu and the others were all guarding outside the courtyard and were not allowed to enter. "Master, there are only less than 10 of the more than 20 herbs left." Ling Shuang gave her a list of the insufficient spiritual herbs and showed it to her. Fengjiu took a look and said, "These are the main ones. Go to the black market now and tell people to make up for it as soon as possible. Tell them to send it over tomorrow at the latest." "Yes," she replied and quickly went out to the black market. Fengjiu's identity as the ghost doctor was recently known by the people in the black market of Yunhua City after she revealed her face without a mask at Qingting Black Market. After all, she did not wear a mask at Qingting Kingdom. She did not disguise herself. As long as they used her portrait to investigate, they would be able to find out. However, she only ordered them not to spread the news. It was fine if the people in the black market knew about it. After all, it was more convenient for her to do things after all. Knowing her true identity. Because of her identity and the fact that she was the holder of the black token, even the presidents of the black market did not dare to reveal her identity. This was because the news from the Yen Kingdom had spread to the various black markets. The ending of the middle-aged man who tried to exchange her black token would definitely shock everyone. "Who's outside?" She walked to the table to rest and called out. Luo Yu's voice hurriedly sounded, and he stuck his head in and asked with a fawning expression, "Does Master have any orders? Do you need me to go in and help?" "Master, we are here too." Chapter 582. Seeing that they were all standing guard outside the courtyard, she shook her head and smiled. "This is the Feng manner. Even if you don't stand guard, no one will dare to invade." She paused and looked at them, saying, "How about this? Luo Yu, go make some explosives. It's best if you teach the Feng guards how to make them and put them in the palace just in case." Hearing this, Luo Yu chuckled. "Master, I already taught them when you left. Right now, everyone has them in their cosmos bags." There are also some in the palace. Even if other countries invade, we have enough soldiers and battle power to fight them. She nodded and said, then the few of you can go and cultivate. Increasing your own strength is most important. As for Fan Lin, don't you know medicine? Come in and help me. Hearing this, Fan Lin rejoiced and quickly replied, yes. Then, he quickly walked in. Looking at the spirit herbs in the courtyard, his heart was filled with excitement. The others were helpless. They did not understand things like medicine, but they could cultivate. Thus, they cupped their hands and left. However, they did not go far. Instead, they sat cross-legged outside the courtyard to cultivate their Xian Qi. After resting for a while, Fengjiu told Fan Lin a few things to pay attention to and continued to make her medicine. 2 days later, another bottle of medicine was made. She let out a sigh and felt that she had really worked hard these past few days. In a short 5 or 6 days, she had made over 100 bottles of medicine. Fortunately, this kind of work was not done often. Otherwise, she would have died from exhaustion. Master, there are exactly 100 bottles. Fan Lin looked at the 100 bottles of medicine on the table in the room. His mood had gradually calmed down and he had become accustomed to it. For the past few days, he had been by his master's side, watching as she refined bottle after bottle of medicine that no one would be able to buy even if they broke their heads. His mood had also become extremely excited with each bottle's success. However, gradually, he saw that his master made almost no mistakes in the field of medicine and did not waste those elixirs that were concocted. At this time, he was already very calm and felt that this was how it should be. Put them away when you're done. You and Ling Shuang will send these 100 bottles of medicine into the palace. She waved her hand and had Ling Shuang and Fan Lin put away the medicine and send it into the palace. Then, she called for a maid to prepare hot water for a bath. She then went to bed to rest for a while. Half asleep and half awake, she seemed to hear the sound of thunder. The two received their orders and left. The remaining people stayed in the Feng Manor. About 4 hours later, they returned with good news. Fengjiu, who had rested for 4 hours. I thought so too. With thunder on a sunny day, it's probably because grandfather broke through. She put down her bowl and chopsticks, wiped her mouth and said, Ling Shuang, come with me to the black market. Yes. Ling Shuang replied and came to her side. You stay at home and guard. Do what you need to do, she said to Fan Lin. Then, she brought Ling Shuang out and went to the black market. Chapter 583. The citizens looked at the beautiful woman sitting inside the carriage, lifting the curtain and propping up her chin with one hand. Their hearts were filled with emotion. Today was different from the past. Her status had changed from the Feng Manor's eldest young miss to princess. Moreover, she had been in charge of the Feng Manor during that time. Her methods and her coldness were all known to the citizens who had gone to watch that night. Towards her, aside from being shocked and envious, there was only respect. Fengjiu was already used to the citizens' gazes. Although she propped up her chin and looked outside, her thoughts had flown far away. She wondered if Xianyuanmos had returned to the empire. The journey from here to the empire was much further than going to a first-tier country. What kind of place was the city in the sky? Truthfully speaking, she really was very curious. Her cheap brother had gone out with the black market's mercenaries to train. She did not know where he had gone. She wanted to find him, but she could not find him. Although her father had already released the news of her grandfather's wedding, she did not know if he had heard the news. While she was thinking, the carriage stopped and Ling Shuang's voice came from outside, Master, we've arrived. She returned to her senses and lifted the curtain to get out of the carriage. She then walked into the black market. When Manager Yen heard that Feng Jiu had come, he hurriedly went to invite the president. Then, he followed behind the president and came to the front. When he saw the ghost doctor, who was dressed in white and had completely lost her usual demonic aura, Manager Yen hurriedly lowered his gaze and stood behind the president in an orderly manner. Your Highness, please enter the room upstairs. The black market's chairman chuckled and looked at Feng Jiu. He gestured for her to enter and led the way. Manager Yen personally stood guard outside while the chairman received her inside. I heard that the retired emperor's wedding is about to begin. How does the ghost doctor have time to come to the black market? The black market's chairman chuckled and asked. He remembered that when the ghost doctor's portrait had come from Enchanting country, he had been given a fright. If he had not confirmed it over and over again, he would never have guessed that the ghost doctor was actually the Feng Manor's eldest young miss, Feng Qinggu, the current princess. However, after knowing that she had defended the Feng Manor and fought against the Enchanting country's imperial family, he felt that this was the ghost doctor's style. Thinking that the ghost doctor was in Yunhua City and that she was the princess of the Phoenix dynasty, he became excited. Originally, he thought that he was just a decoration in this place, but after knowing that she was the ghost doctor, he became excited. There are many things in the black market. However, there aren't many good things in Yunhua City. Hence, I'm here today to ask for your help. Feng Jiu smiled and looked at the man in front of him. Hearing this, the guild master smiled and asked, "Please speak, ghost doctor." "I need some magic weapons or spiritual weapons, both offensive and defensive. I also need 2 flying magic weapons. I want to buy these through the black market. They don't have to be of too low quality. Aside from buying them, you can also barter with me." Hearing this, the guild master was startled. Then, joy appeared in his eyes. Ghost doctor means that as long as you take out a magic weapon that you like, you can exchange it for a bottle of medicine. She nodded. Seeing that the guild master was startled for a moment, her eyes shone with joy and excitement. Chapter 584. As he spoke, he took out several magic tools from his space and introduced them to her. However, among the magic tools, Feng Jiu only took a liking to one of them. It was a flying device called the flying wheel. "This one, do you want to trade?" She looked at the black market president and asked. "Trade, of course we'll trade." The black market president smiled, and asked expectantly, "How would the ghost doctor like to trade?" Hearing this, Feng Jiu smiled. She glanced at the black market president, who had an expectant look, and said, "What does the president think?" At this moment, her voice had already become slightly cold, and her glare towards him carried a bit of warning. Seeing this, the black market president smiled embarrassedly, and gave up on the idea of extorting a few bottles of medicine from her. Just now, he did have that thought. He thought that she probably didn't know much about the market. If this flying wheel could be exchanged for 2 or 3 bottles of medicine, then he would have profited greatly. After all, although the flying wheel was a pretty good flying device, he had one himself. There was no point in keeping it, so he might as well trade it for some medicine that could help him level up. He had received news that old Master Feng had broken through to become a medicine sovereign not long after he returned. Others might not know, but he knew. It must have been the ghost doctor's doing, using her medicine to help him break through. If his cultivation could break through again, as long as his strength allowed it, he could be transferred to other places. Although the Phoenix dynasty was different from the past, he still wanted to work in the black markets of the high-ranking countries. Only in those kinds of places would he be able to come in contact with more things and see more things. This, according to the market price, exchanging a bottle of ghost doctor's medicine for level up is about right. As he spoke, his face was a bit embarrassed. Seeing that she was staring at him with a smile that wasn't a smile, he couldn't help but say, "Amen, how about this?" The ghost doctor will also leave this magic tool. This way, it's about right. He sighed in his heart. He originally wanted to extort a sum of money from her, but who knew that he didn't get anything. Hearing this, Fengjiu took out a bottle of medicine and kept the 2 magic tools, then said, "Then that's it for now. As for the rest, I'll leave it to you to keep an eye out for me. I'll take my leave first." She nodded and led Leng Shuang out of the room. After leaving the black market, she got into a carriage and headed to the palace. In the main hall, Feng Xiao was discussing something with a few people. When he heard the guard coming in to report that the princess had arrived, he couldn't help but look up, but he didn't even see her shadow. After a while, he saw his daughter leisurely walking over. "Father," she called out and walked in. Her gaze swept past the middle-aged Phoenix guards. Eldest Mississippi, several people bowed and said to Feng Xiao, "This subordinate will take his leave first." Saying this, they retreated far away. "Xiao Zhou, I was just about to look for you. Come, sit here. I'll show you the recent arrangements." He gestured for her to come forward. Fengjiu stepped forward and sat down beside him. "The betrothal gifts are almost ready. I want to ask, who is the most suitable person to send the betrothal gifts? This matter should be handled by the subordinates, but she always had her own opinions." He felt that it might be better to ask her about this. Chapter 585. Hearing this, he hesitated. Is this appropriate? Why is it inappropriate? Besides, I have to use my flying ship to deliver so many betrothal gifts. Otherwise, how can I deliver them? That's why it's best for me to handle this matter. She chuckled and asked, "But father, when the time comes, do we go to Sanjiang City to pick up the bride, or do they come here first and find a place to stay before we pick up the bride? I really don't know anything about these things. You can ask them when you get there. They'll make the arrangements." He thought for a while and said, "It's not appropriate for a girl like you to go. How about this? Go ask old Master Gung to go with you. You'll have an elder by your side. If there's anything you don't understand, he'll tell you." Hearing that it was old Master Gung, Fengjiu nodded. "Okay. The betrothal gifts have been prepared. When do you plan to leave?" he asked. Fengjiu's eyes flickered. He thought for a while and said, "Let's go tomorrow. I'll put the flying ship outside the palace gate and carry the betrothal gifts on it. The people who will deliver the betrothal gifts will count them. We'll leave tomorrow." "Okay. Go to your grandfather and tell him that I'll go to the Gung family and ask old Master Gung to go with you." He stood up and walked out. Fengjiu went to the place where her grandfather cultivated. He told him about the matter and checked his condition. Then, he gave him some potions that could help him level up. "Grandfather, although the potions can help you level up, you can't use too much of it. At your current stage, you can only use 2 bottles." She looked at her grandfather, whose face had changed because he had become a martial emperor. She continued, "After using these 2 bottles of potions, no matter what your level is, you'll have to stop cultivating. You can't cultivate anymore." "Ah, little Feng, don't worry. Grandfather eats more salt than you eat rice. I know this. Don't worry. I'm no longer the same as before." Old Master Feng stroked his beard and smiled. He then added, "With your Grandpa Gung accompanying you, Grandpa can rest assured." "All right then, I'll head back first. I still have to make some arrangements." She smiled and said goodbye to him before turning to leave. This time, aside from the people her father had arranged, she also brought along Luo Yu's group of 8 and Leng Shuang. As for Leng Hua, he remained in the Feng Manor to take care of matters. The next morning, when the luxurious spaceship landed in front of the palace gate, it attracted the attention of the citizens. The red words on the spaceship that said, "Double Happiness," made the citizens gasp in amazement. I heard that the retired emperor is going to marry the daughter of an aristocratic family from a third-rate country. He's going to present the betrothal gifts. Since His Majesty posted the news, the invitations from the neighboring countries have been sent. The big day is on the 13th of December. It will definitely be very lively then. That's for sure. This is the old master's, no, the retired emperor's wedding. It will definitely be a grand affair. Look, that's the Gung family's old master. I heard that His Majesty personally visited him yesterday and asked him to go with him. Chapter 586. The white figure that walked out of the palace gate walked with light and elegant steps. Her dress fluttered gently in the breeze. She was elegant, refined, and dignified. Beside her was Ling Shuang, who was dressed in black and had a cold look on his face. Behind her were 8 handsome phoenix guards. Fingzhou, who was dressed in white, looked even more majestic when he was surrounded by these people. "Grandpa Gung," Fingzhou greeted with a smile. "Sorry to trouble you." He, you're too kind. This old man is honored." Ha ha ha. He laughed loudly, and his whole person was full of energy. Fingzhou smiled and said to the people behind him, "Go and see if everything is ready." Yes. They walked toward the spaceship, and their hearts were nervous. This was the first time they went out with their master. Although they didn't show it on their faces, they couldn't sleep since last night after hearing the news. Fingzhou and old Master Gung were chatting while the other side was checking the betrothal gifts and the people. Not long after, they came to report. "Master, the betrothal gifts and the people are all here. We can leave at any time." "Okay." She responded and made a gesture of invitation. "Grandpa Gung, this way please." Old Master Gung nodded and turned to board the spaceship. The moment he stepped on the spaceship, he sighed in his heart. He didn't expect that the first time he boarded the spaceship would be on the way to deliver the betrothal gifts for old Master Feng. It was really unexpected. After everyone boarded the spaceship, Fingzhou asked them to sit down, and then started the spaceship to go to the Yan Kingdom. On the other side, in the palace of the Enchanting Kingdom, Crown Prince Enchanting sat in front of the table after hearing the latest news from the Phoenix dynasty. His brows were furrowed, and his eyes were gloomy and unwilling. Compared to when he first met Fingzhou, he was now emitting a vicious aura. Phoenix dynasty, Feng Qingge. Or Fingzhou. And that man, who is he? Ever since he returned, he was fiercely reprimanded by his father, who repeatedly ordered him not to provoke the people of the Phoenix dynasty. He even called back all the people he could use, as he was afraid that he would not be able to hold himself back and make a move on the Phoenix dynasty. However, after suffering such a great humiliation, how could he be willing to give up just like that? As for that reckless and flamboyant beauty, that woman who was as beautiful as a ball of fire, his initial joy turned into obsession. Letting go. How could this be? However, when he thought of the black-robed man and the power behind him, he felt a wave of powerlessness. Yama Lord, that man was actually the lord of the Yama Palace, whose influence was spread across all the major countries. How could he have the strength to contend against him? His heart still trembled at the thought of that man's cold and sharp gaze containing the power to destroy the heavens and earth. His hands were tightly clenched into fists as his eyes shone with a determined light. He muttered in a low voice, "This king will not let go. Feng Qingge, I will definitely obtain you." Yan Kingdom, Sanjiang City, Lin family. Ever since old Master Feng left, Sushi had been sitting there lazily, looking forward to it. She was not interested in anything, and it could be said that she was counting the days. Chapter 587. Sushi glanced at the two and said, "No, I still need to embroider a pair of mandarin duck's pillowcases later." Her wedding dress was left to her by her mother. She thought she wouldn't need it, but after so many years, it could finally be put to good use. She didn't know how to embroider a wedding dress, so she embroidered a pair of mandarin duck's pillowcases. However, this was her first time being a bride and she was a mess. She didn't know what to do and the person she wanted to see wasn't by her side. She was lazy all day and didn't have the energy to do anything. When the two heard her words, they helplessly shook their heads and laughed. A pair of mandarin duck's pillowcases hadn't been finished since Sanyuan left. This speed was really slow. Fortunately, she didn't need to embroider a wedding dress. Otherwise, who knew how long it would take? The father and son accompanied her in the courtyard and chatted for a while. After a while, when the two were about to leave, they saw the housekeeper hurriedly run in with a face full of excitement. He's here. Family head, he's here. What's here? Lin Buheng glanced at him and asked. Even Lin Qingji and Sushi looked over. Their gazes fell on the housekeeper's excited face. He's here to deliver the betrothal gifts. The housekeeper said excitedly. What? He's here to deliver the betrothal gifts. Lin Buheng and Lin Qingji looked at each other. Wasn't this too fast? It hadn't even been 10 days since they left, right? He's already here to deliver the betrothal gifts. Sushi stood up with a face full of surprise and asked, Really? Where's Sanyuan? He's here to deliver the betrothal gifts. I haven't seen him yet. I only know that there's a huge entourage. That luxurious flying ship directly flew into Three River City and is heading towards our Lin Manor. There's a large double happiness character on the ship. Everyone in the city is talking about it and is following behind the flying ship to see the commotion. Hearing this, the father and son were dumbfounded. They hurriedly said, Quick, come with me to take a look. Lin Buheng said and instructed Sushi, Stay in the courtyard and don't go out. A bride can't go out and show her face. If Sanyuan comes later, Big Brother will send someone to tell you. Sushi was also happy in her heart. Knowing that the rules were like this, she nodded her head. Her face flushed red as she shyly urged, I understand. Big Brother, quickly go and take a look. Ha, I got it. Qingji, let's go. Lin Buheng glanced at his son and strode out. At this moment, the people in the Lin mansion heard the news and rushed out. When they arrived outside the house, they saw a flying ship with the words Double Happiness flying towards them from afar. The speed of the flying ship was very slow and it flew very low. Sounds of fireworks could be heard from the flying ship. With a bang, colorful fireworks scattered and fell from the sky. It was extremely beautiful. In addition to the fireworks along the way, after entering the city, wedding candies were sprinkled all the way from the spaceship, making the people in the city cheer. The whole Three River City was in an uproar, and the cheers were endless. Some forces and families came out to watch, and they were very surprised. Generally speaking, spaceships were not allowed to enter the city, but this spaceship could directly fly in. It was obvious that the owner of the spaceship had an extraordinary background. Chapter 588. Firecrackers and candies were sprinkled all the way to the entrance of the Lin residence. As the spaceship in the sky gradually landed, the surrounding area was already filled with onlookers. Everyone from the Lin family gathered in front of the entrance, looking at the lively scene with smiles on their faces. They were extremely excited. With such a special betrothal gift and such a commotion in the city, those who didn't know would think that the Lin family was marrying off their daughter today. In fact, they were just here to deliver the betrothal gifts. At this moment, while everyone was exclaiming and discussing, a handsome young man in a red robe walked out of the spaceship. The young man's appearance was outstanding and peerlessly handsome. There was a wanton expression between his eyebrows. As soon as he appeared, the surrounding people exclaimed and looked at him in amazement. "Look, that young man is so handsome. What a handsome young man. Whose young man is this? His temperament is really extraordinary. I wonder if this young man is already taken." In the midst of everyone's discussion, Fengjiu, dressed in red, stepped out of the spaceship. As she walked down, Old Man Geng, Ling Shuang, Luo Yu, and the others followed behind her. Other than Ling Shuang, who was dressed in black, the 8 Phoenix Guards were all dressed in the same silver robes. They were handsome and exuded a fierce aura, like a sharp sword that was about to be drawn. It was very intimidating. Surrounded by these people, the young man in red walking in front was even more dazzling. With a clear distinction between master and servant, everyone could tell at a glance that the young and handsome young man was the master of these people. "Grandpa Lin, I'm here to deliver the betrothal gifts on behalf of my grandfather," Fengjiu said with a smile as she stepped forward and cupped her hands together until she arrived in front of them. "Ha ha ha, so it's Xiao Zhou." Lin Buheng originally wanted to call her Little Feng, but seeing that she was still dressed in men's clothes, he changed it to Xiao Zhou. At the same time, his gaze swept past her and looked at Old Man Geng. "This is my grandfather's good friend, Old Man Geng of Yunhua City. This time, he was asked by my grandfather and father to come with me," Fengjiu introduced the two with a smile. "Patriarch Lin, I've heard a lot about you." Old Master Geng cupped his hands and smiled. He had only heard about Lin Buheng from the Feng family's girl on the way here. He admired this person's style and temperament. Hearing this, Lin Buheng smiled and returned the greeting. "You're a good friend of Sanyuan. Please come in." "Xiao Zhou, Brother Geng, please come in." He made a gesture of invitation and invited them in. Fengjiu smiled and walked inside with Old Man Geng. Ling Shuang followed closely behind. The 8 Phoenix Guards stayed behind and ordered the accompanying people to carry the betrothal gifts to the Lin mansion. When the onlookers saw the boxes of betrothal gifts being carried to the Lin mansion, they were all amazed. "This is just a betrothal gift. I thought they were here to welcome the bride. Isn't this wedding ceremony a little too grand? What do you know? It's said that the bride of the Lin family is a girl called Su Shi, the sister of Patriarch Lin. She's married to the retired emperor of the Phoenix dynasty. It's said that the Phoenix dynasty is a newly risen dynasty and the retired emperor and Patriarch Lin are sworn brothers." "Who is that young man in red? Is he the prince of the Phoenix dynasty?" Chapter 589. Outside, the crowd was discussing as they looked at the chests of betrothal gifts being carried into the Lin mansion. They were all praising the extravagance of the betrothal gifts. There were at least 100 chests of betrothal gifts. It was really exciting. Inside, other than the main members of the Lin clan, the womenfolk were not allowed to enter the main hall. Instead, they had the guards clear out a space and place the 100 chests of betrothal gifts in the courtyard in front of the main hall. The 100 chests of betrothal gifts filled the entire courtyard, making the womenfolk envious. In the hall, the head of the Lin family, Lin Buheng, was sitting in the main seat. Fengjiu and Old Master Geng were sitting in the first and second seats below him. Lin Qingji was sitting below them. On the lower right were several elders and his other sons. "Last Feng, what day did you choose? Why did you send the betrothal gifts so quickly? Where's your grandfather? Why didn't he come?" Lin Buheng asked. In fact, he did not care if the person who sent the betrothal gifts was Old Master Feng. He just thought that Old Master Feng would come, but he did not, so he asked. Fengjiu looked at him and said with a smile, "The day has been chosen." It's December 13th. We came to send the betrothal gifts on this auspicious day. As for my grandfather, he has been cultivating in seclusion since he went back. Now he has broken through the martial Grandmaster realm and entered the martial Emperor realm. He wants to break through again and enter the martial Venerable realm soon. Therefore, only old Master Gung and I can send the betrothal gifts. Speaking of this, she smiled and cupped her hands, saying, "If there's anything wrong, I hope Grandpa Lin and everyone can forgive me." Ha 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 ha, of course not. Lin Buheng laughed loudly, but he was surprised. He asked, "Sanyuan entered the martial Emperor realm not long after he went back. How could he be so fast? Entering the martial Venerable realm in such a short time. That's impossible, right?" Hearing this, Fengjiu said with a smile, "I also told him to act according to his ability. Whether he can advance or not is one thing. It's fine as long as he does his best." Yes. It's fine as long as he does his best. He cares too much about the world's opinion. He shook his head and smiled. Then, he looked at old Master Gung and said, "I'm sorry to trouble you this time, Brother Gung. You must rest well in the mansion for 2 days. It's no trouble at all. It's my honor to deliver the betrothal gifts on behalf of Sanyuan," old Master Gung said with a smile. After they chatted for a while, the Phoenix Guard came in and reported that the 100 boxes of betrothal gifts had all been moved in. Only then did he take out the list of betrothal gifts and walked forward to present it with both hands. "Patriarch Lin, this is the list of betrothal gifts. Please follow me outside to check and hand over the betrothal gifts." "All right, then let's go together." Lin Buheng nodded his head and gestured to the elders. Then, they walked out together. When they arrived outside and saw the piles of boxes in the courtyard, they all smiled. The Lin family had seen hundreds of boxes of betrothal gifts before. However, the fact that they could take out hundreds of boxes of betrothal gifts showed how much importance they attached to this marriage. This made the Lin family feel very gratified. Not to mention the betrothal gifts, just the fact that they sent the betrothal gifts into the city was enough to make the Lin family proud. Chapter 590. As the crowd listened to Old Man Gung recite the names of the treasures, they saw the guards carrying the boxes and opening them. They were filled with dazzling jewels and treasures. The dazzling light flashed in their eyes, causing them to exclaim inwardly, "Southern sea pearls, Rui golden jades." The boxes were all opened in front of them. Even though they were already mentally prepared, they were still excited as Old Man Gung counted the items. 100 boxes of treasures, silks, antiques, and precious herbs were all sealed and carried to the Lin family storeroom. When there was only one box left, Old Man Gung paused and looked at Fengjiu. Under her signal, he cleared his throat. The last box, 100 bottles of precious medicine. Hearing this, the Lin family was stunned and looked at each other. What did he mean? 100 bottles of precious medicine. Was it fake? The Phoenix dynasty was only a small 9th-tier country. Where did he get 100 bottles of precious medicine? It should be ordinary medicine. He was too embarrassed to say it, so he directly said it was precious medicine. Everyone had different expressions. No one took it seriously. After all, 100 bottles of precious medicine was too unbelievable. It was impossible. This continued until the last box was brought forward. When the box was opened, the top and bottom layers each contained 50 bottles of medicine. At this moment, when they saw the 100 bottles of medicine, everyone's expression was still strange. Seeing everyone's expression, Fengjiu did not say much. She only revealed a meaningful smile. She did not explain and only quietly watched as the box was closed, sealed, and carried into the storeroom. Only Lin Qingji noticed the meaningful smile on her lips. He didn't say anything, but he thought to himself. After the handover, the Lin family held a banquet to entertain them. During the banquet, Sushi also appeared to entertain them and arranged a place for them to rest. After the banquet, Fengjiu came to Sushi's courtyard and talked with her for a while. He told her that old Master Feng was currently cultivating. If grandfather wasn't cultivating, he would have come personally. He told me to tell Aunt Sushi not to blame him. Fengjiu looked at the gentle woman in front of him with a smile. Sushi had a sweet expression and replied, "Yes, I know. When you go back, tell him to take care of his body. Don't tire himself out." Fengjiu smiled and gave her the list of betrothal gifts. "This is for Aunt Sushi. Aunt, keep it well." "Okay." She took it and said, "You've worked hard. Go back and rest early. I'll come and have breakfast with you tomorrow." "Okay, then I'll go back first." Sushi smiled and turned to leave. As for the other side of the courtyard, Lin Qingji had been puzzled when he thought of the smile on Feng Ix's face when they handed over the betrothal gifts today. Those 100 bottles of medicine were just ordinary medicine. If it was ordinary medicine, they wouldn't send it as a betrothal gift. But if it was really precious medicine, it shouldn't be possible. After all, rare medicine was so rare that every bottle was priceless. How could they get 100 bottles in one go? Yes, it doesn't seem possible. He muttered in a low voice that only he could hear. Chapter 591. I'm thinking about the betrothal gifts. Go to sleep. Don't wait for me. He waved his hand, wondering if he should go talk to his father. Betrothal gifts. That's ants. What are you worrying about? The first madam couldn't help but laugh. You don't understand. As he spoke, he walked around the room with his hands behind his back. I'll go talk to my father. As he spoke, he wanted to go out, but was stopped. The first madam looked at him helplessly. Look at the time now. Is there anything that can't wait until tomorrow? Besides, the betrothal gifts have already been sealed and put in the storeroom. The guests are still in the manor. If you're worrying about the betrothal gifts, who knows what they'll think? Lin Qingji was startled. He looked at her and asked, what do they think? He just felt that something was wrong and wanted to talk to his father. Husband, the betrothal gifts are for Aunt. Even if it's my father, he won't touch them. When the time comes, he'll definitely let Aunt bring them back to the Phoenix dynasty to give her face. So I think that you shouldn't worry about this matter. Father didn't say anything. Even if there is something, it's my father's business, not yours. Her voice paused. You're only a nephew. There's a generation between you. After hearing her words, Lin Qingji thought about it and gave up. Forget it. We'll talk about it after they leave. Now that the guests are in the manor, it's not good to talk about the betrothal gifts. He suppressed the matter. However, he still remembered the 100 bottles of medicine. He felt that it was better to find an opportunity to take a look. The next morning, after Fengjiu and Sushi had breakfast, Fengjiu, Old Man Gung, Ling Shuang, and 8 Phoenix guards went out. Sushi, who had been here before, wanted to show them around and see the prosperity of Three River City. When Lin Buheng was about to call Fengjiu and chat with Old Man Gung, he was told that they had left early in the morning to go sightseeing. No one went with them. Lin Buheng asked with a frown. He felt that this wasn't proper hospitality. Big brother. Sushi walked in. Hearing his words, she smiled and said, I originally wanted to accompany them, but Phone Girl said that she had been here before and was familiar with this place, so she took them out herself. I saw that there were many of them, so I didn't follow. It's rude to let the guests wander around the city by themselves. Lin Buheng said and shook his head. It's okay, we're family. Sushi said with a smile. She held his hand and said, Big brother, I heard that the 100 boxes of betrothal gifts dazzled many people in the clan. Ha, I haven't seen it yet. Ha ha ha, you don't have to worry. Those are all yours. Big brother won't touch them. At that time, besides this betrothal gift, Big brother will also prepare one for you. Moreover, your other brothers have also said that they will also prepare one for you. Also, your nephews will also prepare one for you. At that time, your dowry will only be more, not less. We will definitely let you get married in a grand manner. Big brother, that's not what I meant. She couldn't help but laugh. She was very touched when she heard her brother say that they had all prepared a dowry for her. Lin Buheng laughed and said, Phone girl and the others sent the betrothal gift so suddenly that I didn't have time to inform father and mother. However, when you get married, they will definitely rush back. Chapter 592. Their parents were over 100 years old, and both of them were very healthy. They did not live in the main house, but lived with their sons for a period of time. Therefore, they had not been in the main house for the past few months. However, they knew about this marriage. Big brother, since the wedding is on the 13th of December, let father, mother, and my brothers come back together. She said with a smile. Thinking that she could see them again, she was very happy. The family was big, and the children would split up after they grew up. The heir of the main house was the eldest son, Lin Buheng. As for the other brothers, they split up and set up their own houses. Because they were not in the same city, the family could only gather together when there was a big event. I got someone to spread the news as early as yesterday. They should be here tomorrow at the latest. That's good. She nodded and smiled. I'll go back first. I haven't finished embroidering the mandarin duck pillowcase yet. Hearing that, he shook his head and waved his hand, indicating for her to go back. As for the other side, Feng Jiu took them to wander around Three River City until noon. They entered the second floor of a restaurant and booked 2 tables to sit down and order some food and wine. Grandpa Gung, will my grandfather come to Three River City to pick up the bride or what? She asked curiously as she poured wine for him. Old man Gung stroked his beard and said, We'll go back and discuss this with the Lin family. Three River City is far from where we are. If they come to pick up the bride, I'm afraid something might happen on the way. Therefore, the best way is to bring them to Yunhua City in advance and wait for an auspicious day to bring them to the palace. He paused and said, We'll talk about this here. As for the final decision, we'll have to discuss it with the Lin family. Okay. She nodded. It was indeed the right thing to do. After eating in the restaurant, they went out for a few rounds. It was not until evening that they returned to the Lin family to discuss how to pick up the bride. Hearing old man Gung's words, Lin Buheng nodded in agreement. Yes, that's true. This place is far from the Phoenix dynasty. Even the airship will take 2 days. If we come here to pick up the bride, it will be really inconvenient. He paused for a moment before continuing, How about this? When the time comes, we will send her off. You can first find a place for us to stay in Yunhua City. When the auspicious day comes, just let Sanyuan come and pick her up. This way, it will be convenient for both sides. It will also save a lot of trouble and reduce the number of accidents. Upon hearing this, Fengzhou and old Master Gung looked at each other and said in unison, That's better. We naturally agree. Well, it's settled then. Lin Buheng laughed loudly. After that, Fengzhou mentioned going back the next day. Knowing that they were leaving, Lin Buheng asked, Aren't you going to stay for one more day? My father and mother have already rushed back. They should arrive tomorrow at the latest. Fengzhou smiled and said, There will definitely be opportunities to meet them in the future. The journey back and forth is also long, so I think it's better for me to go back early so that they won't miss me. Alright then. Since that's the case, I won't keep you. I'll send you off tomorrow morning. Chapter 593. The next day, Fingjiu and the others left on a flying ship under the Lin family's escort. The trip to the Yen Kingdom had broadened Old Man Gung's horizons. He was even more determined to cultivate and advance. After watching their flying ship leave and disappear into the clouds, the people from the Lin mansion then turned around and walked back into the mansion while chatting. "Father, I have something to say to you," Lin Qingji said after holding back for 2 days. When he saw Fingjiu and the others leave, he could no longer hold it in. Lin Buheng glanced back at him and motioned, "Come to the study." With that, he walked inside. In the study, Lin Buheng sat down and looked at his son who followed him in. He said, "Speak. What is it?" "It's about Aunt's betrothal gifts." He sat down at the table and said, "I don't think those 100 bottles of medicine are what we think." "Those 100 bottles of medicine?" He looked at him and said, "Then what do you think they are?" "The Phoenix dynasty has just been established. Even if the Feng family was powerful, what kind of good medicine could they have in a place like a 9th-grade country?" He poured a cup of tea and drank it. He said, "However, whether the medicine is good or bad, it's their good intentions. We can't dislike it. Don't mention it again." When he heard this, he knew that his son had misunderstood him. He shook his head and said with a smile, "Father, it's not like that. I just think that the medicine is not simple. I'm afraid it's really a rare medicine." Lin Buheng, who was drinking tea, glanced at him and asked calmly, "Why do you think so?" "Father, have you forgotten what you were investigating? Uncle Feng's granddaughter, Fengjiu, is not a simple person. Moreover, how long has it been since Uncle Feng returned? He has entered the martial emperor realm so quickly. It can be seen that he has the help of medicine. The 100 bottles of medicine they sent proves this point." "You mean to say that they have a pharmacist?" He nodded, "Yes, and he's probably a high-ranked pharmacist. That's why I thought those 100 bottles of medicine were not simple." Hearing this, Lin Buheng was silent for a moment, and said, "We don't have much contact with medicine. If we really want to know, I guess we can only take it to the Pharmacists Guild for them to verify it." Just as he was speaking, the voice of the housekeeper came in from outside to report. The Patriarch and the others have returned." Hearing this, the father and son in the study were startled. They hurriedly got up and walked out. Lin Buheng asked, "Where are we now?" "He's in the hall right now." As soon as the housekeeper finished speaking, Lin Buheng and Lin Qingji had already walked toward the hall. Outside the courtyard, before they even entered the main hall, they could already hear the lively laughter inside. The two of them walked in and saw the 2 people sitting in the main seats. Lin Buheng hurriedly bowed and respectfully bowed. "Father, Mother. It's Boss and He Qingji." The old lady sitting on the main seat looked to be in her 60s. She had a kind face and looked at her son and grandson with a smile. "Qingji greets grandfather and grandmother." Lin Qingji respectfully knelt down and kowtowed to the 2 elders. All right. Get up. Qingji, come and let grandmother take a look at you. Have you not been cultivating recently? Why hasn't his cultivation improved?" Chapter 594. For us cultivators, cultivation is the most important thing. The stronger you are, the longer your lifespan. You can't be lazy. You must cultivate diligently, understand? All right, don't talk about this the moment you come back." The esteemed elder next to him said in a bad mood. He laughed and said to his eldest grandson, "Cultivate slowly. There's no need to rush. Let's not talk about this today. As soon as his voice fell, he looked at his son and asked, when we entered the city, we heard that the betrothal gifts were being sent in a grand manner. Where are they? Are they still in the residence? Lin Buheng heard his father's question and quickly replied, they already went back. They just left not long ago. As he spoke, he handed over the list of betrothal gifts. This is the list of betrothal gifts. I hope father and mother can take a look. The esteemed elder took the list and looked through it. When he saw the last 100 bottles of rare quality medicine, he stroked his beard. Have you seen these 100 bottles of medicine? Rare quality. Their small country can only be considered a 9th grade country. Where would they get rare quality medicine? It had to be known that it was difficult for a family like theirs to find even a few bottles. How could they give out 100 bottles in one go? Ordinary medicine. Of course, if it was just ordinary medicine, they wouldn't have sent it as betrothal gifts. I only accepted it. As for the 100 bottles on the list, I haven't opened them yet. Then send them to the pharmacist for verification. Sushi smiled and walked in. She walked to her mother's side and intimately held her hand. Father, mother, you're finally back. Sushi girl, you still dare to say that? The esteemed elder glared at her. What did you do? How could you send people to kidnap Sanyuan? This matter is truly absurd. Enough, what did you say she did? The old madam was unhappy and glared at the esteemed elder. She patted Sushi's hand and smiled. Don't listen to your father. That old thing is very old-fashioned. You did well. You should do this. Hearing this, the elders and their sons all lowered their heads or looked away. Some of them couldn't help but smile. The esteemed elder blew his beard and glared. His mouth moved, but he didn't say anything. He only snorted and looked away. Little sister, you only saw father and mother. Why didn't you see me, your third brother? The middle-aged man sitting on the side joked. Third brother heard that you were getting married and had your sister-in-law prepare a gift for you. Don't you have anything to say? Hearing this, she smiled and said, Third brother, when I heard that you all came back together, I went to the kitchen and asked them to make your favorite dishes. Otherwise, I wouldn't have waited until now to come. Sanyuan. When we. Of. Little girl Sushi, let's go. Accompany mother to your courtyard. Let them have a good talk here. The old madam gestured and helped her stand up. After Sushi said goodbye to everyone, she left with her mother. After they left, everyone stopped chatting and joking. The old man said, Boss, get someone to bring the box with 100 bottles of medicine. Chapter 595. Open it. The old man gestured. Everyone saw that after Lin Buheng opened the seal, there were 50 jammed bottles in the upper layer of the box. Those bottles were even exquisite, as if every single one of them was meticulously made. The old man went forward and picked up a bottle to take a look. His sharp eyes saw that at the bottom of the bottle, there was a special pattern engraved. He couldn't help but be startled. He waved his hand and said, Lauer, look at the pattern on this bottle. Doesn't it look familiar? Hearing this, Lin Lauer went forward and took a look. Other than seeing that the bottle was exquisite, he also felt that the pattern at the bottom of the bottle was somewhat familiar. He couldn't help but frown and think for a while. It does seem like I've seen it somewhere before. As he said that, a thought suddenly flashed through his mind. He slapped his thigh. That's right. He hurriedly took out a drawing. On it was an exquisite bottle, and at the bottom of the bottle was a pattern. Comparing the two, the father and son both trembled. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. Seeing their reaction, the people around them were puzzled. They asked, "What's familiar? Have you seen this bottle before?" However, the father and son didn't say anything. They picked up a few more bottles and looked at them. When they saw the same pattern at the bottom of the bottle, they couldn't help but be stunned. They said in disbelief, This isn't a dream, right? Big brother, is this box of medicine really sent by the people of the Phoenix dynasty?" Lin Lauer suppressed the shock in his heart and couldn't help but ask. "Yes, what's going on? Is there a problem with this medicine?" Looking at the two's expressions, why were they so strange? Lin Lauer swallowed his saliva and tried to use a calm voice to ask, "Big brother, elders, have you heard of a pharmacist called the Ghost Doctor?" One of the elders said, "We have heard of him. It's said that the medicine this person refines is extremely precious. It's a priceless item in every big country. This person is rumored to be a legend. He's more than a legend. There are very few medicines that he can concoct, but every bottle is extremely precious. There are many old monsters who are stuck in their cultivation, but as long as they use one of his advanced medicines, they will be able to break through their bottlenecks and successfully advance. Every bottle of his medicine is priceless. Even if someone offers an astronomical price, they might not be able to buy it," he said excitedly. Looking at everyone's expressions, he only felt that he was unable to calm down. At this moment, even the patriarch was so excited that his body was trembling slightly. His face was flush red, and his eyes shone with excitement. This time, we saw a bottle of the Ghost Doctor's advancement medicine being auctioned off at the black market's auction. We went to take a look, and all the old monsters from the various clans and powers were mobilized to fight over that bottle of advancement medicine. The final price of that bottle of advancement medicine was shockingly high. Lin Lauer continued, "Father wanted to bid for it, but the price was too high and he couldn't get it. But later on, I found a way to get the Ghost Doctor's special pattern. Look, it's this. It wasn't easy for me to get it." Everyone was stunned and couldn't react for a moment. And then? What does this have to do with these medicines? Only Lin Boheng and Lin Qingji, father and son, were shocked. They suddenly took a big step forward, picked up the bottle of medicine and compared it to the pattern on the drawing. With this comparison, the pattern was exactly the same. Looking at it, the two of them were shocked and their eyes widened in disbelief. Chapter 596. What? The elders and the others gathered around when they heard this. However, before they could get close, they were stopped by the old master. "Everyone, stand still." Once the old master's voice rang out, everyone instantly stopped. Their bodies stiffened as they looked at the old master, then at the bottle in his hand, then at the blueprint in Elder Lin's hand. They wanted to say something, but under the old master's gaze, no one opened the bottle, and no one moved. The entire hall instantly quieted down. What kind of mess is this? What if the medicine spills on the floor? The old master said exasperatedly. Glaring at everyone, he said, "Everyone, return to your seats." Yes. Everyone's faces flushed. Realizing that they had lost their composure, they lowered their heads in embarrassment. After replying one after another, they returned to their seats, each pair of eyes landing on the old master. Seeing that everyone had returned to their seats, the old master coughed lightly and said, "Although the bottle of this medicine is the same as the Ghost Doctor's special bottle, the medicine inside is not clear. After all, there are over 100 bottles of medicine here. If it really is the Ghost Doctor's medicine, then it really is no small matter." His voice paused, and his sharp gaze swept across everyone. Everyone here today heard it. Keep it to yourselves. Don't even mention it to your women and children. If this really is the Ghost Doctor's medicine, once the news gets out, it will bring disaster to our Lin family. However, as long as we use it well, this can be an opportunity for our Lin family to rise to the next level. Towards the end, his voice trembled slightly. Everyone looked at each other, nodded, and replied, "Yes, we know. We definitely won't leak it out." The old master nodded and asked, "Boss, when they sent the betrothal gifts, did they say what medicine it was?" Lin Buheng shook his head a little shamefully. "I thought it was just a normal medicine, so I didn't care and didn't ask. The ghost doctor's medicine has many types, and each one is different. Big brother, are these two levels the same? Have you opened them to take a look?" Lin Lao said, his gaze landing on Lin Buheng. "Then open the lower layer." "Seriously, you didn't even ask about the betrothal gift?" The old man glared at him and motioned for him to open the upper layer. Lin Buheng did as he was told. When he opened the top layer and revealed the bottom layer, he saw a piece of paper inside. He picked it up and looked at it, then excitedly handed it to the old man. "Father, look, it's all written here." The old man took it and looked at it. His hands trembled slightly, and his face turned red with excitement. "Good, good, good. This is great. This is great. Ha 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 ha. Old master, what does it say?" An elder asked. "It's written here that there are 50 bottles of advancement potions in this box. In addition, there are 10 bottles each for external and internal injuries, as well as antidotes. There are a total of 100 bottles of potions, all of which are made by the ghost doctor." The old man said excitedly, his face full of disbelief. "How did they get so many potions? Just these 100 bottles of medicine alone are incomparable to the 100 boxes of betrothal gifts. This is too extravagant. My Lin family is blessed. Ha 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 ha." Seeing his grandfather's happy and excited expression, and then seeing the elders, his father, and his uncles talking excitedly, Lin Qingji thought for a moment, looked at everyone, and said a little rudely, "That, grandfather, these are the betrothal gifts for Aunt." Chapter 597. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. It was as if they were suddenly holding their breaths. They looked back and forth. Finally, everyone smiled awkwardly and looked at the old man. "That's right. This is the betrothal gift for Su Shi. Old master, what do you think?" If Qingji didn't mention it, I would have thought that it belonged to our Lin family. Although it does belong to our Lin family, it still belongs to Su Shi. But is it for our Lin family? Or is it for Su Shi? What for the Lin family? What for Su Shi? It's such a mess. This old man is confused. The old man glared at the clan elder and coughed. This betrothal gift has been given to the bride's family since ancient times. As parents and elders, we won't accept it if the family is rich. When the time comes, we'll let the daughter marry off and bring it back. It's also giving her face. If we meet someone who isn't rich, it's also appropriate to accept some. His voice paused for a moment before he continued, however, we originally said that this 3 yuan betrothal gift would be given to Su Shi untouched, but from the looks of it, this medicine is not ordinary. We still have to discuss it with Su Shi. Since they were able to send these betrothal gifts, they naturally wouldn't want to take them back. However, everyone should know that this is the ghost doctor's medicine. A single bottle is priceless. If our Lin family accepts this box of betrothal gifts, then we will have to give Su Shi an additional dowry. Hearing his words, everyone nodded and felt that it made sense. Let's do as the old man says. We still have to talk to Su Shi about this. If our Lin family accepts this box of betrothal gifts, then we naturally have to give her an additional dowry. Lin Buheng thought for a while and said, "Let me talk to Su Shi about this." On the side, Lin Bo thought for a while and asked, "Father, should we take this medicine to the medical guild to test it?" Hearing this, everyone looked at the old man. The old man was angered by everyone's gaze and said unhappily, "Are you afraid that no one knows that we have 100 bottles of medicine? You still want to take it to the medical guild to test it? The pattern on the bottle is obvious. Could it be that there's something wrong with it?" After being scolded, LoveLore smiled embarrassedly and lowered his head in embarrassment. "Boss, keep these 100 bottles of medicine yourself. Wait for a while before dealing with them. Every bottle is extremely precious. We must not waste them," the old man instructed. "Yes." Lin Buheng replied solemnly and put the box into his space. Lin Qingji saw that the old man was deep in thought with his hands behind his back, so he asked, "Grandfather, is there anything wrong?" "I was just thinking, this Phoenix dynasty is just a small 9th grade country. How could they have gotten 100 bottles of this ghost doctor's medicine? When I heard you talking about that girl called Fingzhou, her appearance." The old man paused and didn't say anything else. Once LoveLore was reminded, something seemed to flash across his mind. He was immediately shocked. Could he be the ghost doctor? When these words were said, the hall fell silent. Lin Buheng said with some astonishment, "Ghost doctor? How could this be?" Although that phone girl liked to dress up as a man in red, she was only 15 or 16 years old. How could she possibly concoct such a high-grade advancement medicine? That's impossible. Chapter 598. Everyone in the hall widened their eyes in shock. If this was true, then wouldn't they become in-laws with the ghost doctor? Thinking of this, each and every one of them was so excited that their faces flushed red. Their excited emotions were like rolling waves that slapped their hearts, stirring up thousands of waves. Lin Qingji was also startled. After a while, he asked, Father, do you think we should call all the younger generation of the clan back from the academy?" Hearing this, everyone was startled. After thinking for a while, they understood the meaning behind his words. They all slapped their thighs and cheered. Call! 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 Call them back, call them back. An elder couldn't help but laugh. Sushi is getting married. How can these younger generation not come back? Yes, they have to come back. There's still time now. Later, send out the message and have them all rush back to attend Sushi's wedding. That's right. How can we not have them come back for such a joyous occasion? No. There are many disciples in the clan. If they all come back, there will be too many people. Just have the direct descendants who are 16 years old and above come back. The men and women don't need to come back. Lin Buheng was stunned when he saw how excited the elders were. When he saw that the old man was smiling but didn't say anything, he couldn't help but glance at his son with a strange expression and let out a dry cough. I think. Let the clan's disciples take this opportunity to visit the Phoenix dynasty and get closer to the phone girl. However, I don't recommend having other thoughts. Speaking of this, Lin Buheng brought out the aura of the head of the clan and said, "Firstly, the phone girl is the princess of the Phoenix dynasty. Secondly, let's not talk about whether she is the ghost doctor. Just based on her way of doing things and her aura, not to mention the younger generation, even our generation is inferior to her. Thirdly, father and second brother, you don't know, but the elders do. The black-robed man who came with her last time is the master of the Yama Palace, the Yama Lord. His relationship with the phone girl is not ordinary. Letting our clan's disciples get close to her will only backfire." Hearing this, everyone gradually calmed down. After analyzing the pros and cons, they looked at each other in unison and nodded. Then when it's time to send off the bride, let the young disciples of the clan go with them. Let them see the world and don't think too much about it. Also, regarding our guesses, it's enough for you to keep them to yourselves. You absolutely cannot speak of it. The old master spoke and gave everyone a warning look. After everyone respectfully answered yes, the old master gestured and said, "All right, go do what you need to do. Disperse." "Yes, we'll take our leave first." Everyone bowed before dispersing. Qingji, Lin Buheng called out to his son. "Father." He turned around and looked at him and the old man sitting at the head of the table. "You're the next candidate for the head of the family. You have to think twice before you speak. You're the eldest grandson of the eldest son. Every word you say represents the Lin family. You can't make any mistakes," Lin Buheng warned in a deep voice. Chapter 599. He waved his hand. You may leave." After dismissing everyone, he chatted with the old man for a while before leaving together. 2 days later, Fengjiu and the others returned to the Phoenix dynasty. After handing over the matters, she returned to the Feng manor to cultivate in seclusion. The matter of sending the betrothal gifts had been settled, so there was no need for her to do anything else. As for her grandfather, she had already prepared the medicine for him to advance to the next level. It all depended on what level his cultivation could reach. After taking care of their matters, she had to cultivate in seclusion as well. At that time, her grandfather's wedding ceremony would definitely be very lively. Before that, she had to raise her strength again. If she couldn't break through her spiritual power, then she would cultivate her profound power. She focused on cultivating in the space and didn't pay any attention to the outside world. During this period of time, the wedding invitations were sent to the kings of the surrounding 9 countries. Some of the clans in Yunhua City also received invitations. As the time drew closer, more and more people from the various countries arrived. Half a month before the wedding, the Lin family was led by Lin Buheng. They personally sent his sister to a prepared residence in Yunhua City. Lin Sushi's brothers and the younger generation of the Lin family also accompanied them. They came in a flying ship. Everyone in the city knew that it was the Lin family for the retired emperor's wedding. Although they were curious, they couldn't peek. This was because there were several nascent soul cultivators accompanying them. Normal people couldn't get close to them. At the same time, in Fengzhou space, she, who was sitting cross-legged in cultivation, had already entered the realm of gazing itself. She had forgotten the time and place, and had even forgotten her grandfather's big day. At this moment, her entire body was filled with a strong profound energy aura, and it was circulating in circles around her body. She originally had a profound spiritual body. After her meridians were opened, her cultivation speed was much faster than others. In addition, she had the space that contained the spiritual energy of heaven and earth as a place to cultivate. With the help of medicine, her cultivation speed was naturally extraordinary. Recently, she had been concentrating on cultivating in the space. Her profound power level was also very fast. Now, she had already reached the initial stage of the martial ancestor realm. Even so, she didn't plan to stop. She wanted to break through the martial ancestor realm and enter the martial emperor realm. However, ever since she had entered the martial ancestor realm, the speed of her cultivation had clearly slowed down. It was as if there was an invisible force obstructing her, preventing her from advancing any further. Because of this, she had drunk a bottle of medicine. However, she had only managed to reach the peak of the martial ancestor realm. She could not cross the final threshold no matter what. Thus, she stopped cultivating her profound energy and started to meditate and practice martial techniques. She repeatedly practiced various martial techniques in her mind until she seemed to have fallen into a state of exhaustion and was unable to continue meditating. Only then did she stop. Whew! She exhaled softly, retracted her aura, and slowly opened her eyes. The moment she opened her eyes, the aura around her seemed to have changed again. It was an extremely subtle change that only the little fire phoenix, who had been sitting not far away and staring at her while eating ginseng, noticed. "Here's one for you to replenish your vitality." A tender voice sounded. A ginseng was thrown to her. Chapter 600. I can't eat an entire ginseng of this. Keep it for yourself. As she chewed on the ginseng, she remembered that she had been in here for a long time and hurriedly got up. I have to go out, in case they can't find me. As she spoke, she looked at little fire phoenix, who was sitting there with only a dudu and eating a ginseng. It was obvious that he had gained a lot of weight recently. She asked, "Do you want to go out?" "I think it's better if you go out with me. Look at you, you stay here all day and don't cultivate. You eat ginseng every day and you've become white and fat. If you continue to stay here, you might become as fat as a ball the next time I come in." Hearing this, little fire phoenix instinctively lowered his head to look at himself. "How am I fat? I don't see it." As he spoke, he pulled out another ginseng from behind him and took a bite, eating it with relish. The corner of Fingzhou's mouth twitched. She helplessly walked forward and picked him up. The soft little child felt so good to the touch that she couldn't help but smile. "Although you're a little chubby, who asked you to be so cute? Let's go. I'll take you out to play. Don't stay here all day." Little fire phoenix, who originally didn't want to go out, heard her praise and his little lips curled up. "All right then. Since you want me to go out so much, I'll go out and take a look." Little brat. She chuckled and patted his chubby little butt, causing him to blush and glare at her. "I want to change my clothes. I'll go out after changing my clothes." In the end, little fire phoenix, who had changed his clothes, was brought out by Fingzhou. When she appeared in the room, she let little fire phoenix play in the residence by himself. She had Ling Shuang prepare hot water for her to take a bath as she asked about what had happened recently. "The people from the Lin family have arrived in Yunhua City. The young disciples of the Lin family came to visit 2 days ago, but they were not allowed to enter. Luo Yute sent them away, telling them that master is cultivating and will not be receiving guests. The monarchs of the various small countries have also arrived one after another. There are also some members of the royal family accompanying them. They have all been arranged to stay in the palace. The Phoenix Guards have sorted out the information of the various monarchs and the members of the royal family. Once master comes out of seclusion, you can check it." She took a hot bath and listened to Ling Shuang's report. She got up and wiped the water off her body before putting on her clothes. She went to the dressing table and sat down. Ling Shuang came forward to dry her hair. "Prepare some food for me and get them to bring the information over. Make some preparations and follow me into the palace later," she ordered, indicating for her to make the preparations. "Yes, sir," Ling Shuang replied and walked out. After drying her hair, she tidied it up a little. She took out a silver ribbon and tied up a small strand of her hair. The rest of her hair fell naturally behind her back. It was simple and imposing, but it did not lose its elegance and elegance. She went to the wardrobe and chose a white dress with silver cloud patterns embroidered on the collar, sleeves, and hem. After tidying it up, she walked out of the room. The maidservants had already laid out the food on the table. The chubby little fire phoenix was already sitting there and secretly drinking wine. Looking at little fire phoenix's flushed face, she was slightly stunned. "You're secretly drinking wine?" "No." The moment the little fellow saw her, he immediately denied it. However, the fragrance of wine all over his body and his flushed little face couldn't lie. Chapter 601. The little guy didn't think much of it. He was of the fire attribute and the wine was strong. The ginseng was also an item that could replenish vitality. Even if the two of them were added together, it wouldn't be a problem for him. At most, the flames in his body would only increase a little. Mistress, this is the information. Ling Shuang walked out and placed the things in front of her. After glancing at the little fire phoenix, he stood to the side. Fengjiu ate while flipping through the information. Other than the person's information, there was also a portrait of the person in the information. Thus, she could tell at a glance who the person in the information was. The meal took about 2 hours. After she finished flipping through the information, she passed it to Ling Shuang and asked, "Is the carriage ready? Call them up and let's enter the palace together." "It's ready. They're waiting outside the residence." She replied and pulled the little fire phoenix with one hand as they walked out. When Luo Yu and the others saw the little fire phoenix outside, their expressions changed slightly. They had seen this child once before. He had suddenly appeared and disappeared. They didn't expect him to appear in the residence again. "Greetings, mistress." The 8 of them returned to their senses and respectfully bowed. Fengjiu glanced at them and ordered, "After entering the palace, you will receive the Wind Palm Guards. Lead each small team and patrol the palace. During this time, don't let any accidents happen." "Yes." The few of them replied and watched as she brought the child who had obviously gained a lot of weight into the carriage. Only then did they follow the carriage to the palace. At this time, in the imperial palace, the monarchs of the surrounding small countries and their accompanying princes were all staying in the palace. They could move freely in the palace. Therefore, the young princes could often be seen gathering in some rockery, pavilions, or flower forests. Drinking tea, tasting wine, admiring flowers, and chatting about beauties were the things that these princes talked about the most when they got together. But recently, they talked about the princess of the Phoenix dynasty, Feng Qinga, more often. "I heard that the princess of the Phoenix dynasty has a beauty that can topple cities, and her elegance is unparalleled. It's just a pity that she doesn't usually live in the palace, but in the Feng manor. We've been in the palace for a few days, but we haven't seen this princess even once. I really want to know, is she really as beautiful as the rumors say? According to what I know, not only is she peerlessly beautiful, her methods and aura are also extraordinary. Before she became a princess, she dared to reject the marriage proposal of the Qingting Kingdom's crown prince. Such courage is not something that ordinary girls possess. After coming here, I really want to meet this princess called Feng Qinga," a well-dressed man casually said as he played with the cup in his hand. That pair of feminine eyes flashed with a wolf-like sharp light. A trace of interest flashed across his eyes, and an interested expression appeared on his face. "That's right, I really want to meet her. However, there's no need to rush. On the day of the Phoenix dynasty's retired emperor's wedding, she will definitely appear," the other prince also said. Compared to the feminine prince, this prince was more of a strength type. Not to mention his appearance, just his sturdy body gave people a feeling that he had a lot of explosive power. "Since there's nothing to do in the palace, why don't we go out and play together?" One of the princes looked at the others and suggested. Chapter 602. I didn't think that there would be such a beauty in the palace. "Look, that girl is really beautiful." He gestured for everyone to look. Everyone followed his line of sight and saw a woman in white walking slowly not far away. Her white robe fluttered in the wind, and her figure was exquisite. What attracted their attention the most was her beautiful face. It was truly a peerless beauty that could topple cities. Even the princes who were used to seeing beauties couldn't help but have their eyes light up. A stunning light flashed in their eyes. "This girl's temperament is outstanding. Her clothes are simple but elegant. Her face is beautiful. She's probably Feng Qingge. The feminine prince sized up Fengzhou not far away and made his judgment. When everyone heard this, they had different expressions. She's the princess of the Phoenix dynasty. With such beauty, it's no wonder that even the crown prince of Qingting fell in love at first sight. She's so beautiful that people can't take their eyes off her. Just now, you said that you didn't have the chance to see her. Now that she has appeared, it's really fate. Since that's the case, why don't we invite her over for a gathering? She's the host, so she naturally can't neglect us guests. What do you all think? The young but scarier prince asked with a smile. His gaze was fixed on Fengzhou not far away. When everyone heard this, their eyes lit up. Of course, that's good. It's our honor to have such a beautiful princess accompany us, isn't it? As they spoke, they all smiled and walked over. They planned to block Fengzhou's path and invite her to the pavilion. Fengzhou held on to Little Fire Phoenix and walked into the palace. Behind her was the black-clothed Ling Shuang, while Luo Yu and the rest went to the Phoenix guards. Those people keep staring at you. Little Fire held on to Fengzhou with one hand and followed beside her with his short legs. He looked at those people with displeasure. They should be the princes from the neighboring countries. Don't worry about them. She didn't even look in their direction and continued walking. She planned to enter the palace to see how her grandfather's cultivation was going. She didn't plan to waste time with those people. But they're coming. As Little Fire Phoenix spoke, his eyes darted around. No one knew what he was thinking. Just as he finished speaking, the 7 or 8 men came in front of her and blocked her path. This must be the princess of the Phoenix dynasty. I didn't expect to see her so soon. It's a pleasant surprise. A prince said with a smile. His eyes wandered over the beautiful Fengzhou, and he did not even let Ling Shuang, who was standing behind her, off the hook. I've heard that the princess of the Phoenix dynasty is devastatingly beautiful. Now that I've met her, I know that seeing is believing. Your Highness, the few of us are drinking wine and admiring the flowers over there. I wonder if the princess would be willing to do us the honor. Another prince said as he looked at Fengzhou aggressively. Ling Shuang, who was following behind Fengzhou, had a cold expression. Especially when she saw them looking at her master with such disgusting eyes, her murderous aura shot out. However, her master didn't say anything, so she couldn't be impudent. She could only suppress the urge to kill. Chapter 603. She lowered her eyes slightly and looked coldly at the hand in front of her. When she raised her eyes again, there was a smile in her eyes. Her eyes curved into crescents as she revealed a harmless smile. Her gaze swept past the sturdy man in front of her and looked at the people beside him. She smiled and said, "Princess, do you really want to have a gathering with me?" When everyone saw her revealing a woman's gentleness, they all laughed in their hearts. She was only a 15 or 16-year-old girl. With so many of them blocking her way, how could she leave calmly? At that moment, someone laughed and said, "Princess is the host. No matter what, you should be the host, right?" "That's right. We met Princess here and wanted to invite Princess to admire the flowers and wine in the pavilion. We hope Princess won't decline. If Princess doesn't like wine tasting, you can accompany us to walk around the palace. As long as Princess keeps us company, we will also like it." Another prince said as he stared at her with a burning gaze. Looking at those wolf-like gazes landing on her, as if she was a harmless lamb waiting to be slaughtered, the smile on Feng Mao's face deepened. She glanced at these people, then her eyes turned and she shook her head. What fun is there in drinking wine and admiring flowers? I don't like that. Oh. Then what does Princess like? That feminine prince asked as he stared at her with a sharp gaze. He felt that this princess of the Phoenix dynasty was nothing more than this. She glanced at that person and said with a smile on her face, "When I'm free, I prefer to exchange pointers with others." Hearing this, everyone had different expressions. They didn't speak for a while and just stared at her. "If princes are interested, I'm very willing to exchange pointers with you. I just don't know if you have the guts." She raised her eyebrows slightly as she looked at them. Didn't they want her to accompany them? She could accept it, but did they have the guts? When everyone heard her words, the first thought that came to their minds was that the princess of the Phoenix dynasty was said to have extraordinary skills. With this question in mind, they sized her up with their gazes. No matter how they looked, they couldn't imagine what was so scary about this delicate girl. In addition, after being provoked by her words, the proud and arrogant princes were naturally unwilling to say that they didn't have the guts, so they all agreed. "Why wouldn't I? We are more than happy to have the princess spar with us." "That's right. I've long heard that the princess's skills are extraordinary. This emperor also wants to experience it. Ha ha ha, I've long wanted to meet Her Highness. Naturally, I wouldn't miss this opportunity." The 7 princes laughed arrogantly, not thinking that this woman's strength was above theirs. One must know that they were able to follow their father here, so they must be the most outstanding among the princes. How could they be afraid of a mere woman? Since she said she wanted to spar, then they could take advantage of this opportunity to dampen the prestige of the Phoenix dynasty. In a fight between men and women, if there was any contact that shouldn't be there, it could only be attributed as unintentional. How could they let go of such an opportunity? However, just as their hearts were filled with excitement and anticipation, they saw the beautiful woman frown slightly. A trace of distress appeared on her face as she shook her head. Chapter 604. Forget it. What do you mean forget it? Just when they were looking forward to exchanging blows with her, they heard her say forget it. How could she forget it? Everyone fell silent as they stared at her in astonishment. Their mouths were so wide open that you could stuff an entire duck egg into them. Especially when they saw the look of hesitation on her face, as well as the look of victory on her face, it made them even angrier. Little Fire Phoenix, who was being held by Fingzhou, rolled her eyes. She knew this woman was going to trick them. Exchanging blows with her. These idiots in front of her really wanted to beat her up. "Princess, do you think you're inferior to us, so you dare to do it?" "That's right. Princess, you're looking down on us too much. Do you think we'll complain to our imperial father if we lose to the princess? Exchanging blows will not harm anyone's life, so it won't affect the diplomatic relations between the two countries. Princess, you can rest assured." "That's right. Moreover, how did the princess know we'd lose? Exchanging blows with each other, maybe we accidentally hurt the princess." Seeing everyone talking, the feminine prince didn't say anything. He only stared at Fingzhou for a long time before saying, "If your highness really has some misgivings, why don't we sign a spar guarantee? Whether it's the princess or us, we'll be exchanging blows of our own free will. Even if we accidentally injure each other, we won't pursue the matter. How about it?" This little emperor thinks this is a good idea." "That's right, this little emperor also agrees." "That's right, sign the guarantee. This will save us a lot of trouble." Hearing everyone's agreement, they all stared at her, waiting for her to speak. Fengzhou smiled, revealing a harmless and pure smile. "Of course, this way, this princess won't have to worry." Just as she finished speaking, Ling Shuang had already taken out a brush, ink, paper, and inkstone from his space and held it in front of Fengzhou with both hands. Fengzhou picked up her brush and wrote down the rules of the competition in a flamboyant manner. Both parties were willing to participate in the competition. If there was any accidental injury, there would be no investigation, and it would not damage the diplomatic relations between the two countries. Finally, she signed the 3 words Fong Chinga and signaled for the others to sign as well. Everyone stepped forward and took a look at it one by one. Thinking that it was feasible, they signed their names one after another. After Fingzhou put away the paper, a smile appeared on his face. After glancing at them, he led them to the martial arts field. At this moment, the 7 or 8 princes were filled with excitement and anticipation. They wanted to take advantage of her during the sparring and show off their might, but they didn't know that they had already fallen into the trap that Fingzhou had dug for them. Due to the gathering of people from various countries in the palace, the Phoenix Guards and protectors increased their patrols. In the past, there would be many people training here, so the training field was empty. Seeing that there were only a dozen or so protectors around the training field, the feminine prince looked at Fingzhou and asked, "How does the princess want to spar?" Fingzhou glanced at him and signaled for the little fire phoenix to stay by Lang Shuang's side and not run around. She then walked up to the competition field and stood on the stage looking down at the princes below with a smile. This princess still has matters to attend to and doesn't have time to delay for too long. It's quite time-consuming to have all of you come here one by one. How about this? All of you come together, it's simple, convenient, and fast. Hearing this, the 7 or 8 princes below were furious. 1 against 8. She really dared to say that. Chapter 605. Seeing this, Fingzhou smiled and said, "That's fine too. If you want to stop the spar, you only need to admit defeat." Admit defeat. Hee, princess really knows how to joke. That prince sneered and cupped his hands in greeting, "Please." As soon as his voice fell, he did not show the courtesy of a gentleman and directly attacked Fingzhou. Fingzhou's lips curled slightly. The opponent's attack was too slow in her eyes and was full of openings. If she did not want to take advantage of this opportunity to take care of them, she really would not have bothered to make a move herself. The palm wind in front of her eyes was aimed at her. She moved her feet slightly and dodged to the side. Her hands did not move and she only raised her leg to attack. She quickly kicked towards the back of the other party's knee. That prince who was unsteady sucked in a breath of air in pain. His knee could not withstand the force and his entire body was thrown forward, almost falling to the ground in a sorry state. He turned around and saw that she did not even move her hands and only used her leg. He could not help but be furious and feel humiliated. He angrily asked, "Why didn't you make a move?" Fingzhou blinked. Her face was full of good intentions, but the words she said made him tremble in anger. This consort only needs to make a move with her leg. If this consort makes a move, I'm afraid that the prince will not be able to withstand it. You! His anger continued to rise. He no longer treated her as a girl. Circulating the profound energy in his palm, he suddenly rushed forward and sent a fierce palm strike towards her neck. Unexpectedly, Fingzhou raised her leg and kicked. Her foot was filled with profound energy, and although it seemed weak, it contained a hidden force. The kick struck the area between his thumb and forefinger. His hand went numb and the profound energy in his palm was instantly dissolved. He only saw her fly out and send out a spinning kick. Pang, 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 pang. Several kicks landed on his body. Hiss! He cried out in pain. He lost his balance and staggered backwards. When the people below saw this, their expressions slightly changed. Another person jumped up, "I'll take on Her Highness the Princess." As soon as his voice fell, the prince who had leapt into the air swept out with his leg. It was a kick that could sweep away 1,000 soldiers. However, when Fingzhou's kick hit an acupuncture point on his inner thigh, an unbearable numbness attacked him and he immediately fell to the ground in a sorry state. His legs were tightly clamped together, and he wanted to reach out and rub that sore and numb place, but because it was close to his crotch, he didn't want to be rude in front of others, so he forcefully endured it. For a moment, he could only be seen twisting left and right, secretly gasping for air, and even his expression became strange. "Your Highness, are you all right?" Fengjiu asked kindly with a face full of concern. After some thought, she added, "Actually, I didn't use much strength in that kick. It shouldn't hurt that much." That prince's face was red as he held his breath. He could not even speak. It didn't hurt, but the numbness was as if millions of ants were gnawing on him. The numbness seeped into his bones, causing goosebumps to rise all over his body. It was simply more unbearable than the sharp pain. Seeing that the two people who went up on the stage were defeated in one move, the faces of the people below were a bit ugly. They only felt that the strength of the two princes was too weak. They couldn't even take that kind of move. It was simply a disgrace to them. The remaining people looked at each other and continued, "Princess is indeed skilled. In order to prevent us from ending up like those two princes, we won't be polite." As soon as their voices fell, they jumped onto the stage and stood around Fengjiu, trapping her in the middle. Chapter 606. Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled and swept her gaze across them. "All right, if I can't win, I'll definitely admit defeat. But you guys have to be careful." As soon as she finished speaking, her figure flashed out and her palm struck towards a prince in front of her. Her speed was so fast that the prince didn't even have time to dodge and was hit in the eye. Bang! Hiss! That prince sucked in a breath of cold air and suddenly retreated after being hit by that fist. The pain from his eye made him unable to open his eyes and he only felt a burning pain. Such fast skills. "We won't hold back then." A person's voice rang out and several figures instantly attacked Fengjiu. The attacks came from all directions and every move was ruthless. They didn't plan to leave any leeway. They only wanted to teach this arrogant princess of the Phoenix dynasty a lesson. However, the corners of Fengjiu's mouth curled up when she saw them make a move. She circulated the profound energy aura on her body and her speed was several times faster than before. Her white figure flitted past them and one could faintly hear the sound of fists landing on the ground, accompanied by miserable cries of pain. Hiss! Ah! Emin! My eyes! Hearing the painful cries from the stage, the guards guarding the martial arts field quietly turned their heads to look at the stage. When they saw 7 or 8 people attacking their princess on the stage, they all shook their heads inwardly. That was their Phoenix dynasty's princess, the master of the Phoenix Guards. Not to mention that there were only 7 or 8 people besieging her, they had seen more than 10 people besieging her and not injuring her at all. On the contrary, everyone was ruthlessly taught a lesson in the end. Those princes were really bold. They wanted to fight with their master and didn't even ask around. They were really asking for a lesson. Watching the scene on the stage, below the stage, little Fire Phoenix fished out a ginseng from his bosom and asked while biting it, "Do you think they'll lose a layer of skin?" Ling Shuang slightly lowered his head and glanced at him. "Even if they don't die, they'll lose a layer of skin." If it weren't for the fact that they were the princes of other countries who had come to attend the old master's marriage, just the fact that they dared to stare at their master with such impudent eyes was enough for them to die 100 times. "Yeah, I think so too. Moreover, I was beaten up for nothing." The little fellow nodded and looked at those people sympathetically. He felt that these people were so stupid that he was speechless. How could such a person be a prince of a country? It was obvious that no matter how much their country wanted to develop, it was impossible. The two of them watched from below. In less than half an incense stick's worth of time, they saw a few people with bruised noses and swollen faces. Their faces were filled with fear, and when they opened their mouths to shout out the word "I," they were sent flying by a punch, interrupting their words of surrender. Yes. With a pained grunt, the prince covered his mouth and stared in shock at the innocent-looking Fingzhou. He opened his mouth but was unable to say anything for a long time. He looked at the people beside him and saw that they were all bruised and swollen, with bruises around their eyes. Some of them even held their stomachs and retreated to the side. Seeing this scene, the prince swallowed his saliva and stretched out his hand. I admit defeat. Chapter 607. The few of them immediately pounced forward after circulating their profound energy, wanting to grab hold of her legs and body, trapping her before teaching her a good lesson. Even the feminine prince and the burly prince no longer cared about their faces. Because they had been beaten up by Fingzhou until their heads were swollen like pigs, their hearts were filled with shame and anger. They only wanted to teach her a lesson, so they pounced forward as well. When Fingzhou saw this scene, she stared blankly for a moment before breaking into laughter. Princes, if you don't want to spar, you can just admit defeat. Why are you acting like fools? This is too disrespectful. Who knew that it would have been better if she had not said this? Once she said this, their faces turned ugly and their faces turned black. Admit defeat. They don't want to admit defeat. She had clearly not even given them the chance to admit defeat. Didn't they see that the prince who had admitted defeat was beaten every time he tried to speak? He had even been kicked off the stage. They were princes of a country after all. How could they really lose face like this? Furthermore, they did not believe that so many of them would not be able to defeat her alone. At this moment, they no longer thought that their foolishness was even more shameful than admitting defeat. Seeing this, Fingzhou did not want to play with them any longer. Furthermore, when she saw their bruised and swollen faces, her anger dissipated. After all, they were here to attend her grandfather's wedding, so she naturally could not go overboard. Hence, when she saw them pouncing over, she immediately kicked them off the stage. Some of them were kicked on the shoulders and rolled off the stage. Some of them were unlucky and were kicked on the face. There were also some who were kicked in the stomach and were sent flying. Hiss. Ah. One by one, they rolled off the stage as groans of pain rang out. The princes who were originally dressed in bright and splendid clothes were now in a sorry state. Their faces were bruised and swollen, looking extremely comical. They crawled up from the ground. Their previous drive had been completely thwarted, and there was even a faint trace of reverence that came from their fists. Although they were a little arrogant, they knew in their hearts that Feng Qingge was able to fight against 8 people by herself because of her excellent skills and cultivation. It was only at this moment that they understood why she dared to refuse the marriage proposal from Qingting's crown prince. Why she dared to oppose Murongbo when she was the only one left supporting the Feng manor. In addition to her skills and cultivation, she was also much more cunning than them. She caught them looking down on her and dug a hole to teach them a lesson. To put it nicely, this was a spar, but to put it bluntly, it was the price for their impudence. They were rushing forward to let her beat them up for nothing. Thinking of the guarantee that they had signed earlier, each of them felt so sullen that they were about to burst into flames. She had been scheming against them for a long time, and they had been so proud of themselves, looking forward to taking advantage of her during the sparring session. Who knew that before he could take advantage of her, he would be severely taught a lesson? Everyone, this competition is over. This consort won't be playing with you anymore. If you still don't have enough fun, feel free to continue here. This consort will be leaving first. Chapter 608. Fingzhou, who had left, had planned to see her father first. However, she heard from the Feng Wei that her father was chatting with the kings of other countries, so she went to find her grandfather first. However, she did not find him in his palace. After asking around, she found out that he had gone to a bamboo forest in the palace. Take little fire to Lang Hua and then walk around. She instructed, indicating for Lang Shuang to take little fire to Lang Hua's side. Yes. Ling Shuang replied, looking at little fire phoenix. The little guy glanced at Fengzhou and left with Ling Shuang without saying anything. It was Fengzhou's first time in the bamboo forest in the palace. Because she did not live in the palace often, she had only heard of this place. Today was the first time she had stepped into this place. After walking for a while, she saw the green bamboo in front of her eyes. When the faint bamboo fragrance filled the air with the breeze, her entire state of mind also calmed down. She walked slowly. Perhaps it was because her state of mind was calm, but at this moment, she actually thought of Xianyuan Mose, who had been away for more than 2 months. After so long, he should have returned to the empire, right? The 1,000-year-old cold poison in his body had not been cured yet. Those suppressing pills would not last long. After returning, would there really be an alchemist who could refine an antidote for him? She thought of the bottle of his blood in her space. After her grandfather's wedding, she would take some time to study it. She did not believe that with her talent in medicine and poison, she would not be able to cure the 1,000-year-old cold poison. When she arrived inside, she saw an old man dressed in gray sitting cross-legged on a large rock in the forest. His eyes were closed as he cultivated. Perhaps it was because he had advanced to the martial emperor realm, his originally silver-white hair had gradually turned gray. His face did not look as old as before. Instead, he looked 10 years younger than before. In the end, he still did not break through to the martial venerable realm. Well, to become a martial honor in such a short period of time, even with the help of medicine, was not an easy task. Unfortunately, she was still lacking in the field of alchemy. Even though she wanted to refine the rejuvenation pill, she still needed to deepen her understanding of alchemy. Perhaps sensing her arrival, the old man slowly opened his eyes. When his gaze fell on Fengzhou, his eyes were filled with love. Little Feng, why are you just standing there quietly? Fengzhou smiled and walked forward. I want to see when Grandpa will notice me. Hee, Grandpa will know once you enter the bamboo forest. He smiled and gestured for her to sit on the big rock. He asked, I heard from the Phoenix Guards that you were cultivating in seclusion. When did you come out? As he spoke, his gaze swept over her body. When he saw that she had already entered the martial arts grandmaster realm, he could not help but be slightly surprised. You're already a martial arts grandmaster? To be able to become a martial arts grandmaster in such a short time, her talent was truly astonishing. Fengzhou smiled and nodded. She came to his side and sat down. She did not hide her cultivation, so he could naturally see it. However, he could only see the cultivation of her dark force. He could not see the cultivation of her spiritual qi. I wanted to break through to the martial arts grandmaster realm, but I was stuck here. So, I didn't cultivate. I planned to wait until later. She smiled and looked at him curiously. Grandpa, when Aunt Sushi came here, did you secretly go and take a look? Chapter 609. Under his granddaughter's gaze, the old man revealed an embarrassed smile and could only say, I haven't secretly gone to take a look, I only went to find Big Brother to drink a few cups of wine. All right. I won't tease grandfather anymore. She couldn't help but gently smile as she said, I came today to see how grandfather's preparations were going. Seeing that you're in good condition today, I'm relieved. Grandfather is doing well, don't worry. The old man smiled as he looked at her. His heart was filled with joy. After all, he never thought that he would marry again at this age. In 2 days, grandfather's big day will be. These two shouldn't cultivate and should rest well. She warned, worried that he would cultivate too much and be too busy before the wedding, causing his body to not be able to take it. I know. Grandfather knows. He narrowed his eyes as he nodded. As if he thought of something, he said, "That's right, Phone Lass. The Lin family seems to have guessed your identity as the ghost doctor. If it wasn't for Big Brother mentioning it that day, Grandfather wouldn't have known that you added 100 bottles of medicine to the betrothal gifts." The betrothal gifts were all arranged by them. His son didn't tell him and he didn't ask. After all, he had told him not to be disrespectful, but he never thought that the betrothal gifts would be so generous that it would shock him. Especially those 100 bottles of medicine. With Phone Lass's ghost doctor name, every bottle of medicine she refined was priceless, but she had refined 100 bottles in such a short time as a betrothal gift. When he found out about this, other than being shocked, he was also moved. She had already arranged everything and gave him enough face. How could he not be moved as a grandfather? Hearing this, Fengjiu revealed a smile. "Grandfather is getting married, so your granddaughter should also give a gift. I don't have anything else, but this medicine, I can refine it." "You?" He shook his head and looked at her lovingly and dotingly. Other people's treasures were hard to come by, but she could casually refine them. If people knew that the famous ghost doctor was his granddaughter, this threshold would be flattened by people who wanted to propose marriage. Fengjiu chatted with him for a while and told him about how she had just met those princes and took the opportunity to teach them a lesson, which made the old man laugh heartily. In the end, seeing that it was getting late, she left first to find her father. However, no one expected that the princes, who were covered in injuries, would be summoned by their father before they could even return to their residences. In Feng Zhao's palace, all the monarchs gathered together. More than a dozen monarchs of small ninth-ranked countries came as well. After chatting for a while, they said that they wanted to call their sons to come and pay a visit. In fact, it was just a gathering for the princes of the various countries to see who was the most outstanding among them. Some of these princes were gathered together, while others were not. Thus, other than the 8 who had been beaten up by Fengjiu, there were 6 or 7 who had been cultivating in their own rooms. When those 6 or 7 came to pay their respects, they sat behind their father. Each of them was dressed luxuriously and had an outstanding temperament. However, just as everyone was talking and laughing, a guard reported that the other princes had also arrived. Everyone in the main hall smiled and looked towards the door. Feng Zhao, who was sitting at the main seat, smiled and ordered for them to be quickly invited in. Chapter 610. What's going on? One of the monarchs stood up furiously and glared at his son who walked in. To be able to bring his son to the Phoenix dynasty, he must be the most outstanding among his many sons. He originally wanted to show everyone his son's bearing and elegance, but who would have thought that he would come in with a swollen face? What's going on with you all? Could it be that someone dares to lay a hand on you in the Phoenix dynasty's palace? Another monarch also spoke in a deep voice. The moment he released his aura, the entire hall felt the atmosphere solidify. When the others heard that monarch's words, they did not speak again. They only looked at their son with a swollen face and suppressed the anger in their hearts. They had really lost all face. Only a few of the monarchs had smiles on their faces. After their dignified gazes swept past the 8 people, they continued to sip their tea. They did not need to care. The one who was humiliated was not their son. In comparison, the princes of the other countries were nothing more than this. The princes sitting behind their father also had a look of surprise in their eyes. After being in the palace for a few days, they had met these people before, but they did not want to be in the same group as them. They did not expect to see all of them with swollen faces today. They were really curious. How did they end up with such injuries on their faces? It was too unsightly. At this moment, the 8 princes who walked in did not feel good either. Their faces were burning, but they did not know if it was due to embarrassment or pain. When they heard their father's summons, they even specially went back to change their clothes before coming. Otherwise, they would look even more miserable now. However, after losing face in front of the monarchs and princes of the other countries, they were a little embarrassed to meet others. Thinking that they had signed a guarantee, they could only swallow this matter in their stomachs. Otherwise, if they knew that the injuries on their faces were caused by the princess of the Phoenix dynasty, they would probably be even more embarrassed to meet others. It was originally 8 against 1, but they still lost in the end. They lost so badly that they could not even raise their heads. After exchanging glances with each other, the few of them bowed to the various monarchs in unison. Only then did the effeminate prince speak. "It's like this. The few of us gathered together and had nothing to do, so we wanted to spar a little. However, we didn't expect that we would go overboard and end up with injuries all over our faces. We really shouldn't have made Imperial Father and the various monarchs worry." Hearing this, the others hurriedly stepped forward and said, Yes, we shouldn't have done that. It was just a spar, but we didn't expect to be so heavy-handed. We didn't expect it to be like this." Hearing this, everyone in the hall had different expressions. To be able to become the ruler of a country, they were naturally all shrewd people. Their words could only deceive others. It would be strange if they believed them. However, was there such a person in the palace who could teach them a lesson and make them help cover it up and not dare to say it out loud? They did not expect it. However, Feng Xiao, who was sitting on the main seat, glanced at the princes and coughed lightly. He took a sip of tea and covered the smile on his lips before speaking. Sparring is beneficial for the improvement of one's strength. In the past, the princes lived in their own countries, and it was extremely difficult for them to meet. To have this opportunity to spar, you will definitely benefit a lot. Hearing this, the 8 of them lowered their heads slightly and responded vaguely. Chapter 6:11. With the announcement of the princess's arrival, everyone in the hall turned to look. The princess of the Phoenix dynasty could be considered a legendary figure. First, her identity was stolen and she was disfigured. Then, she returned to take back her identity and took over the Phoenix token. Then, she broke off the engagement with Murong Yixian. When the Feng Manor was in trouble, she supported the Feng Manor by herself and no one dared to offend her. She was fancied by the Crown Prince of Enchanting, yet she dared to refuse the marriage and forced a marriage in front of the Feng Manor. The moment she acted, Enchanting's guards were utterly defeated. In an instant, she took the lives of the generals and dared to let the blood of the invaders splash in front of the Feng Manor. She pulled down the previous ruler, Murong Bo, personally pushed her father onto the throne, changed the dynasty's name to the Phoenix dynasty, and personally went to a third-tier country's Lin family to send the betrothal gifts to her grandfather. All of these were not things that normal women could compare to. They were curious about the princess of the Phoenix dynasty. Rather than saying that they were here to attend the wedding of the retired emperor, it was better to say that they were here to meet the princess of the Phoenix dynasty. They brought their most outstanding sons here for a reason. They wanted to see the princess of the Phoenix dynasty and get a feel of her. Then, they would see if they could talk about the marriage. The Phoenix dynasty was rising. If this princess was as outstanding as the rumor said, they naturally hoped that they could get this outstanding woman for their son. As for whether it would succeed or not, they were not worried. The matters of the young people were left to their own devices. Trying was still necessary. Even if the chances were slim, what if it really did succeed? Different from their father emperor, the princes that had been taught a lesson by Fengjiu instinctively stood to the side when they heard the princess's arrival. They felt that they were still a bit conspicuous standing there, so they all went to sit behind their father emperor. The other princes noticed their strange actions and were slightly surprised. Their thoughts turned and they looked at the entrance of the hall. They saw a white-clothed woman slowly walk in. She did not have anyone accompanying her, but she was neither haughty nor servile. Her steps were light and calm as she walked in. The moment they saw the woman, the eyes of the young princes lit up. Her peerless beauty was one thing, but the most important thing was the incomparably noble aura she exuded. Her white dress fluttered in the wind, and her ink-black hair fell behind her back. She was elegant and unhurried. They only saw a faint smile on her beautiful face. The mysterious look in her clear eyes raised her beauty to a whole new level. It wasn't the gentle beauty of an ordinary woman, nor was it the cold and frosty kind of beauty. It wasn't the kind of beauty that was hot and alluring. The space between her brows emitted a dazzling expression like the blazing sun, and there was a trace of laziness in her expression. Her actions exuded confidence and calmness, and it was a kind of unrestrained carefreeness that came from her bones. It had the indolence that belonged to a woman, but it also had a calmness that was not inferior to a man. It was truly breathtaking and unforgettable. Fengjiu slowly walked into the hall. His gaze casually swept across the crowd in the hall. When he saw the few people sitting behind their imperial father with their heads lowered and half of their faces covered, a smile flashed across his eyes. These people actually came here. How interesting, you're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.